Good morning. My name is Brian Gruen. I have the honor of serving as the pastor at First Congregational Church of Kittery at Kittery Point. And a week ago, I came to you on a rainy, cold, nasty day, and we reflected a little bit on cognitive dissonance, on the experience of thinking something that is different than what we actually experience in our bodies or in our lives, and how that disconnect is so rampant right now in this time of pandemic. We feel disconnected from one another, disconnected from ourselves, and the thoughts we have in our minds and the actions that we experience in our bodies, even those don't always match. And that disconnection can be incredibly painful and incredibly difficult to sit with. But today is a bright sunny day, and I come to you with a different reflection, not a reflection about dissonance, but about resonance. Not about disconnect, but about connection, reconciliation. In this Easter season, we believe that God is reminding us again and again and again of the fulfillment of the promise of reconciliation, that everything in creation is actually one, made one through the Spirit, the love, the compassion of our God. Yesterday, we had a really great conversation in one of the groups in our church, in Zoom, not in person. We're not doing that quite yet. But in our Zoom meeting, we had a great conversation about connection, trying to figure out what is the way forward in this time of pandemic. What do we need to do? How's this going to get better? And some wise, wonderful person in our group, he said, when you can't find answers to your questions, when there are no answers to be had, the best we can do is articulate the questions. Maybe just articulating the questions helps lead us to what's next. So what is next for us, dear friends? We know that this pandemic, as scary as the virus itself is, we know it's causing all kinds of disruptions and misery for all kinds of folks. It has completely dismantled our economy with everyone having to stay home. Many people in our own communities have no idea where their next paycheck will come from or how they're going to keep paying their bills. We know that this whole situation is causing all kinds of suffering and heartache in all kinds of ways. So what's the way forward? We seem to primarily rely on the promises of technology and the economy, and hoping that our systems are resilient enough to bounce back quickly from this major crisis. And the thing is about those things, the thing about technology, economies, industries, institutions, systems, none of those things come into being overnight. All of them take time. So what are we supposed to do with our lives while we wait for a vaccine to be invented, while we wait for the economy to get up and running again, whatever that might look like, while we wait for help and support from our human systems? The good news I bring you today is that while all of those things might take a really long time to come into being, to make themselves known, to show us the way forward, we as people of faith don't actually have to wait entirely for those things. Let me be clear. We need a vaccine before we're going to be safe from this virus. That's what we know we need. And in the meantime, we're going to have to work together to figure out what are the safest ways of being together and living together and serving one another. Your church council met this last week. I encourage you to go to these church council meetings. They're open to anybody. You should come to one sometime because the leaders of this community are faithful and inventive and caring, and the conversations that they're having are moving because to a person, they are concerned first and foremost with everyone's safety. And they are wise enough to know that we're all aching in different ways from this crisis, that safety and need looks different for a lot of us right now. And we're trying to take in all that information and accommodate and serve all those different needs. It's a miraculous conversation to have, and you're going to hear more about those conversations in the days and weeks ahead. The short of it is, currently, we don't think it's safe to get together at all. Not only is the virus still running rampant, but we're forbidden from having groups of more than 10 people gather in one place. And we are an open and affirming community. We say no matter who you are or where you are on your journey, you're welcome here. If we're only able to gather in groups of 10, we're excluding a lot of people. It's not who we are. So there are no easy answers. Not right now. And it's going to take a long time for technology, for economy, for systems and institutions. It's going to take a long time for all these things to develop answers. But like I said, I have good news. For us people of faith, we are not entirely reliant upon what's new. We are not entirely reliant upon things that don't exist yet. Because we have the ability to remember who we are and whose we are. We have the ability to remember where we come from and who we are called to be. Our ultimate hope is not found in what's new and what's next. It's not even found in what's normal. Our ultimate hope is found in the God of all creation, in a very ancient tradition. I want to share an image with you. This is a tree stump in my backyard. I share with you the image of a tree stump because for the last year, this church has been exploring how trees work. We've been studying, what does a living tree do? What makes it living? How does it keep itself alive and thriving? And the reason why we're asking those questions is because a lot of us feel very deeply that we are not fully human, that we have forgotten how to be fully human. And without any answer for what does it mean to be human, how do we be fully human, since we don't have answers, we try to articulate questions. What does a full human do? Where do we begin? Well, our faith tradition tells us that humans are made in the image of God. What does that even mean? Because, God doesn't have a body. So it doesn't mean we look like God. What does it mean to bear the divine image of a God that doesn't have a body? After a lot of conversation and reflection and discernment, what it seems to mean is that human beings are created to be fully connected to the earth, fully in relationship with the material world, with creation, with other people, the environment around us, to be fully connected there. And to be human is also to be fully connected to the divine. We are both God's beloved and made of dirt. To be fully human is to be balanced in those relationships, deeply connected to both earth and God. And through those deep connections, we learn how to be in right relationship with one another and the entire world. That's where we begin figuring out how to move forward. A vaccine for this virus is what's ultimately going to make us safe from the virus. Getting the economy back on track is what is ultimately going to bring prosperity back to the people in economic terms. Whatever institutions or systems we're relying on to serve us, that's going to be a way of moving forward, but it's not the only way. And we're not entirely reliant on any of those things. Our salvation comes from being in right relationship with God and the earth and one another. And the same way that a tree has to do certain things to stay alive, we have named that there are certain spiritual practices, certain things that human beings can do in order to learn to become more fully human. We practice humility, trust, commitment, discernment by drawing and redrawing our boundaries and serving one another. That's always going to be the way forward for us. To be fully human, to respect our relationships, to be in right relationship with one another, to be connected, to live as one. These are the gifts of the spiritual journey. And they aren't gifts that can be bought, but they also aren't gifts that can be denied us while we're forced to stay in our homes. These are things that can be explored and reflected on at any time. So very quickly, I want to share with you a couple things. First of all, next week, we're going to start doing a series of videos that explore all these practices: humility, trust, commitment, discernment, and service. And we're going to talk about how each of these things might help us to articulate questions. They may not lead us to answers for what's next for us or how to move forward, but they will absolutely help us articulate better questions. And before that time, we want to offer everyone in our faith community an opportunity to celebrate and worship our God, while also learning how to take more responsibility for ourselves, because that's such a huge part of relationship. Relationship is a dynamic. To be in relationship requires two or more parties taking responsibility for what they can and offering themselves to one another. This upcoming Sunday is Mother's Day, and we thought it would be interesting to celebrate Mother's Day by reflecting on our relationship with Mother Earth, encouraging one another to take responsibility for what we can, to have a better balanced relationship between Earth and God, and those balanced relationships are going to tell us how to have better relationships with our community, with one another, with the world going forward. So as a way of practicing taking responsibility for what we can, we are putting the worship service together today on Friday. And it will be available in a few different forms. The bulletin will be available to download through this weekly mooring. This video is going to go out with the weekly mooring. And it will also be found on our church website, kitterypointucc.org. And there's also, along with that bulletin, is going to be an audio file, and that's for a guided meditation. That guided meditation is going to help prepare our souls and our minds for what we experience on Sunday morning. So you are welcome to listen to that meditation anytime you want, anywhere you want. You can probably download it to your phone or to your iPad and listen to it wherever you'd like. That's for you to do as you choose, however you feel called. And then our worship service on Sunday morning will be pre-recorded. We'll put it up on YouTube as early on Sunday morning as we possibly can, and you'll get to watch it however you want, whenever you want. And at 11 a.m., we'll hold a fellowship hour on Zoom using the normal Zoom link for Sunday mornings. And we'll enjoy seeing one another and connecting, sharing stories, sharing blessings, celebrating Mother's Day, celebrating our God and our earth. It's a way of taking some pressure off of one another by taking responsibility for what's ours. You don't feel like worshiping this week? Don't. You don't feel like being connected to a screen this week? Download the audio file. Be present that way. Or just simply take time to sit and listen to the birds or pray. All of it is worship. All of it is pleasing to God, and all of it keeps us connected to one another regardless of when or where we are worshiping. So that's how we will continue to move forward, by offering what we can, taking responsibility for what's ours, and inviting everyone else to do the same. Trusting that it is ultimately God's grace and love that keeps all of us connected to one another. That's our way forward, regardless of what technology or money or institutions bring us. May God's grace and peace be with you today on this beautiful sunny day. Tomorrow, when I hear it might snow, know that you are loved, know that you are held. You are God's beloved. And we'll see you soon.